The previous lesson we saw how we can create clones of our existing elements as soon as we click on them. So there's a few other things that we want to add in, and we want to add the ability that we have some type of movement on these elements. So again, selecting that object, we're going to set a value for moves using math. We can do math floor. And let's do math random. So we've got them each randomized the number of movements that we can make. So up to 25 movements we're going to allow them to make. And then after we've given a random number for the moves, I'm going to set up the interval. So we're going to do set interval. And this interval is going to invoke a function, call it mover. And it's going to run every 25 milliseconds. Now let's create that function. And I'll make this bigger, because this is going to be fairly long. So we'll check to see if the holder object, so it's always referring to that holder one, moves is less than or equal to 0. And if it is, then we want to clear the interval. So that means that it's over, and we want to clear that interval so that holder object int. So the same one that we created up there. So this gives us a way out of our element, our interval. Also, we want to update our holder object moves value, and we can decrease that. So decreasing that, and again selecting that holder object, we can update, so we'll set up some variables where we've got our start Y position. So we'll update that by 10. And setting those start positions, we should do that as well up here. So within our holder object, so that we have a start position to reference. So this is where our element starts, so the X position, and using the parent, the element offset left for our horizontal. And then we also need to set a vertical, so start Y, and using that element, we can use offset top to determine where the offset top position. And remember from the last lesson that these are going to be numeric values, so we don't have to parse them as integers, and we can just use them as numbers. And we can also update our Y position, so we can make it go diagonally across, or it could just make this one a little bit less of an increment. So taking our holder object, so the next thing that we need to do is update our style properties for that particular element. And we've got our holder object start X, or our start Y position. And don't forget to add the pix, otherwise it's not going to work. And this one is going to be updating the style left position. And this is going to be X. So this is going to be moving along the horizontal. So now let's try that out and see what happens. So we see we've got these elements that are falling at random places. And this way you can clearly distinguish that you're producing multiple ones. So that's how you can create some type of animation and movement for the elements that you're cloning. So it's not all stacking one on top of the other. So now we've got more of a randomized effect here. So let's also, in the next lesson, we're going to make these elements draggable. So whenever we go on top of them, we'll make it so that we can drag them. So that's coming up in the next lesson, because we already have that cursor where we've updated the cursor style on top of these elements as we're creating them. So giving them the effect that we have the ability to drag them. So let's add that in the next lesson. So go ahead and build out your interval and update the position of the elements that get created.